The GoPro Hero 12 and the Insta360 X3 are both excellent cameras. But how do these two action cameras perform in a direct comparison? And to whom would I rather recommend the X3 and to whom the Hero 12? I will determine 5 categories of users and assign the ideal camera to each category. But before we get into head-to-head comparison shots and talk about types of users, it's important for you to know what the basic differences are between the two cameras and what the advantages and disadvantages of each are. While the GoPro Hero 12 is a classic action camera, the X3 is a 360 camera, probably the best 360 camera you can currently buy in the consumer space. Unlike the GoPro, the X3 actually has 2 cameras and 2 extremely wide lenses. The footage from both cameras is then automatically stitched together to create a 360 image. I would say that a 360 camera like the X3 has 3 very special advantages compared to a classic action camera. You can use it to take a 360 shot and look around freely in the image during playback, as if you were in that place at that moment. This is cool. However, most of the time the 360 recording is not used for that, but it is converted into a classic video recording. And that's where the second big advantage of a 360 camera comes in. You can choose the perfect framing from a complete 360 panorama. This means you can take a 360 shot and not have to worry about whether the framing is perfect. So you can shoot without stress, choose the best framing afterwards, and convert the video into a conventional video clip. You can also freely choose the format. This means that you can create a horizontal or vertical shot from a 360 shot without any restrictions. You can even change the framing as the clip goes on, for example showing the front view at the beginning and the back view at the end. The X3 has another key advantage over a camera like the Hero 12. When you take a shot with a pole or a selfie stick, the pole is removed from the shot completely automatically and magically. This is not an artificial digital trick like with the DJI Action 4 for example, but it's possible because the shots from the 2 extremely wide lenses overlap. And the possibilities that arise from the freely adjustable framing and invisible poles are endless and cannot be praised enough, because they allow you to get creative, unusual and innovative viewing angles and shots. You can mount the X3 in multiple ways and take completely new and spectacular shots. This all sounds great and you should probably go for an X3 right away and forget about the Hero 12 and other action cameras. If there weren't 2 major drawbacks. While the X3 is probably the best 360 camera in the consumer space, the technology isn't yet at the point where the image quality would be fully comparable to that of a current GoPro, like the Hero 12. If you want to create a classic video clip from a 360 shot, you have to choose the framing and then export the clip. The exported clip is therefore a crop of the 360 shot and has a reduced resolution. In addition, you have to select the framing for each 360 shot and therefore have to edit it if you want to get a standard video clip that you can watch on your smartphone or share on social media. However, these 2 drawbacks are mitigated by an important feature of the X3. The X3 is also capable of shooting in single lens mode, so it can shoot standard non-360 footage. And it can even do that in 4K. That means if you need a quick shot that you don't want to edit, you can also use the X3 just like any other action camera. Basically, you're getting 2 products in one. But of course, even the 4K image quality of the X3 in single lens mode doesn't fully match the quality of the Hero 12. That would be too good to be true, and there would probably not be much of a market for GoPro anymore. I'll now show you exactly how the shots look in a direct comparison, and that the X3 also has a few clear advantages in a direct comparison. The first thing that immediately stands out is that the X3 has a much wider field of view than the Hero 12. The GoPro is set to the standard field of view wide here. The difference is huge, particularly when you consider that the wide field of view is very important, especially for an action camera, as it allows for an immersive look and also makes it possible to film yourself well with a pole. However, the GoPro has a few more special settings to increase the field of view. The largest field of view is achieved with the GoPro in Hyperview. In this case, however, there are very strong distortions. That's why I rather recommend the field of view Superview on the GoPro, which you can see here in this comparison. Also, the Hero 12 has an 8:7 sensor, which is almost square and allows you to convert the same shot into a vertical or horizontal clip. But as I said, you have that freedom with the X3 as well, of course. For an even wider field of view, you can still use the new max lens mount on the Hero 12. However, this must be purchased separately and is relatively expensive. Here you can see another comparison with a pole and see the advantages of automatically removing the pole from the shot. As for colors, in addition to a log profile, both cameras have 2 color profiles, a highly saturated color profile and a more natural, less saturated color profile. Both cameras produce beautiful colors. Especially with the saturated color profile, the shots look very similar. What is noticeable with the GoPro, however, is that it generally adds a lot of clarity to the shot. Structures like in the clouds are therefore strongly emphasized. The X3 shot on the other hand looks a bit softer. And of course, you can also see that the Hero 12's shot has more detail overall. The Hero 12 can shoot at a maximum resolution of 5.3K and produces very detailed recordings. The X3 does shoot in up to 5.7K, but the recording still needs to be reframed and thus cropped. This way the X3 loses a lot of resolution compared to the Hero 12. The single lens recording cannot fully keep up with the Hero 12 either, despite the resolution of 4K. However, the X3 has another advantage over the Hero 12, which may come as a surprise to some. It has the significantly better image stabilization. My last comparison between the Hero 12 and the Action 4 showed that the Hero 12 currently has the best image stabilization of a classic action camera. In this comparison, however, you can see that it is clearly inferior to the X3 in the default setting. Of course, this is also due to the extremely wide field of view of the X3. A wider field of view always has advantages when it comes to stabilization. And before we get to the types of users, you should know 3 more important differences between the two cameras. There are 2 more advantages of the Hero 12 and one particular strength of the X3 that should not be overlooked at this point. The Hero 12 is capable of taking high-resolution slow-motion shots in 4K at 120 frames per second. While you can also shoot slow-motion at up to 100 frames per second with the X3, you'll have to reduce the resolution even further to do so, which I wouldn't recommend unless you absolutely need it. And the Hero 12's slightly larger sensor allows for slightly better shots in low light, though the GoPro is by no means a low-light expert either. On the other hand, the X3 has one advantage over the Hero 12 that is very important. It has the significantly better app. Insta360's app not only allows you to make better automated edits of your footage, it also offers a variety of creative editing options and effects, all of which are included for free in the app and don't require another subscription. Some of these are gimmicks, while others allow for really cool results. So who should get the Hero 12 and who should get the Insta360 X3? It depends on the type of user and what you want to do with your camera. That's why I've determined 5 types of users and tried to recommend the right camera to each type of user. The absolute beginner. If you are an absolute beginner, have hardly any experience with cameras and have never used an action camera, then I would perhaps rather go for the Hero 12. Or better yet, a slightly older and cheaper GoPro. The GoPro also has a lot of setting options, but it is overall a bit easier to use and the 360 camera needs a bit more training time. It's not hard to use and the auto tracking feature and easy to use app also make reframing easier, but a classic action camera is certainly the easier way to get started. The slightly advanced user and outdoor fan. I would say that outdoor fans, whether they also do action sports or not, are the typical action camera customer. And if you already have some experience with action cameras or cameras in general and maybe even already own a slightly older GoPro, then I would definitely go for the X3. The reasons are obvious. It offers you completely new and creative possibilities. You can capture unusual angles and experience a whole new world of filmmaking. The added value compared to a new GoPro is much greater. Also keep in mind that the Hero 12's improvements are minor compared to the Hero 11 or Hero 10. The extreme athlete. If you are an extreme sports enthusiast, it depends on the sport you're into and which mount you'll primarily use when filming. As an extreme mountain biker who films primarily with the chest mount, I would tend to go with the GoPro. It's a little easier to mount on the chest mount and the benefits of slow motion also play a role. A surfer should also rather go for the GoPro. Although there is an invisible dive case for the X3, this is not intended for use out of the water. On the other hand, athletes who mainly want to film themselves, such as skydivers and perhaps skiers, should rather take the X3. The reframing and the invisible selfie stick simply offer great advantages if you want to film yourself. The Selfie Filmer. I would recommend an Insta360 X3 to most people who want to film themselves frequently, especially for sports or even vlogging. The audio quality is a bit worse than that of the Hero 12. However, it is very easy to connect an external microphone, such as the Rode Wireless Go. In addition, the X3 features the so-called Me Mode. In Me Mode, the person is automatically kept in the center of the frame, so you don't have to worry about the framing at all and you don't have to edit the shot. The professional filmmaker. If on the other hand you value the absolute best image quality and need high-resolution recordings that you can also use on large screens for professional purposes, then you should go for the Hero 12. As mentioned, the GoPro takes higher resolution and more detailed footage. If you mainly watch your videos on your smartphone, that's not so crucial, but on a larger screen you can see the difference. A few words about the price. The GoPro Hero 12 costs $400 and $480 with the Max Lens mod. The Insta360 X3 usually costs $450, with Insta360 in particular offering discounts very often, so I recommend you to check the prices continuously. You can find the link in the video description. You will also receive a free gift via the link. If you're interested in how the Hero 12 compares to the Action 4 or what accessories I would recommend for the X3, take a look at my respective videos. There will be more videos on the X3 and the Hero 12. Give me a like as feedback if the video was interesting for you. Stay tuned and see you next time.